Morning, neighbors. Things that make you think. You know how those are. They're all over if you've got too much time on your hands. So, early 1980s, I was invited for a position as a field service engineer for something called optical emission spectrometers. These are high-end lab analyzers. Very expensive in their day. Took a lot of support facilities and rooms, still does. But they've gotten smaller and better and faster. So this was 1980, early 80s. And the first thing that happens is you go through a series of specific training courses to learn about the specifics of the instruments you're going to work on. Now, to be invited to this party, you had to have some reasonable credentials or understandings of the basis behind this, like a mini computer, like high energy power supplies, AC, DC, arc and spark, and one of my specialties was argon plasma sampling techniques. So different ways of exciting a sample to be able to see it, and what's seeing it is called an optical emission spectrometer, and inside of that is something akin to a prism, but it's called an optical grating. Worth looking up if you're optics curious, because we don't use prisms anymore. These optical gratings are custom ground, custom flats with focal lengths and specific designs on how that optical flat, which isn't truly flat, it's a focusing mirror as well as being a flat, is going to take the light from that excited source and split it into the different colors that actually compose light. So one of the challenges to light is there's no such thing as white in the measurement spectrum. White is kind of a made-up, soft, squishy thing because it's hard to explain. So the basis of this company that sold these analyzers to commercial nuclear facilities, to commercial labs, to colleges, to industry, for very specific high purity materials testing purposes. The data is used in many different ways for many different things because of the different types of things you can analyze. So those techniques, the arc and spark or the argon plasma sampling, was something not only was I already aware of coming in, I learned the details of it and the finites of it. So that was amazing in itself. Again, these instruments are not common out there among the common folks. So you get to go visit labs, spaces that are just fascinating, interesting, for 2 or 3 days at a time. That's how long it would take for a typical service call, or months in a foreign country with your passport withheld. So all cool stuff, big stories in there, a bunch of stories in there. But one of the key reference libraries for this company, Jarell-Ash, they're an optics company. They're owned by somebody else now. They've been bought and sold a number of times, but that company used a reference standard, big, massive book. Imagine that, a book. But the book was of film plates, developed film plates. Each plate was about, I'm going to say, a foot by a foot and a half. And this book was Optical Emissions Reference Standards. Basically said what wavelength a red light is, what wavelength a blue light is, what wavelength it's separated out. Imagine looking at the rainbow but seeing them as hard lines with separations between the hard lines. That's optical emission spectrometry. It's a prism, looking through a prism. It tells us many things. But the question was, the Vatican press published this reference standard, a huge, very official looking reference bound, leather bound volume of optical emission standards from the Vatican Press, printed in the early 1900s. Amazing science that escaped one of the boxes people try to put it in. The Vatican printed referential, fundamental scientific standards that prove a whole bunch of things. It taught us so much today that's so hard to see from your living room. Peace is out.